Previously on Golden Tales Radio. Margaret, a 62-year-old janitor and former violinist, had been secretly playing her violin in an empty office lobby after her late-night cleaning shifts. One night, she discovered she was not alone. Daniel Whitmore, the CEO of the company, had been standing in the shadows, listening. And when she moved to stop, he asked her not to. Today, we continue. I lifted the bow and I finished the piece. Not because I was brave. Not because I had made some decision to hold my ground. But because something in his voice had asked for something real. And I did not know how to refuse that. So I played the final passage, the part that had always, since I was a young woman. Playing it for the first time in a practice room with bad acoustics. And a borrowed instrument, felt like a hand placed gently over a wound. The lobby was utterly still. Just the sound of the violin moving through the dark. When the last note faded, I lowered the bow and stood quietly, waiting. Daniel did not applaud. He exhaled long, slow, and looked at the floor. Then he raised his head. "That piece," he said, his voice still rough. "My mother played it." His mother's name had been Eleanor, and Eleanor Whitmore had been a violinist. He told me this in the dark lobby. Neither of us moving toward the light switches, as though the darkness was appropriate to what was being said. Eleanor had studied music at the same university. I had attended a coincidence that made me go still when he said it. She had wanted to perform professionally. She had the talent for it. But life redirected her, as life has a way of doing. She married, raised Daniel and his sister, gave up the stage. She never gave up the violin. He described falling asleep as a child to the sound of her practicing. In the next room, the music moving through the walls like something breathing. Salut d'Amour had been the piece. She returned to most often not for concerts, but for herself. The piece she played when she needed something words could not reach. Eleanor had died 3 years earlier, after a long illness. That night, Daniel had stayed late going over quarterly figures. By 11 he finally set down his pen, put on his jacket, and started toward the elevator. He was thinking about his mother. The anniversary of her death had quietly passed without him, registering it, buried under meetings and spreadsheets. And that recognition settled on him with the particular heaviness of small failures. And then he heard music. He stood very still in the corridor. And listened, certain for a moment that he was imagining it. The building was empty. The building was always empty this late. But the music continued. He followed it. He found me in the lobby, playing with my eyes closed. Facing the windows and the city lights, in a gray janitor's uniform. And the piece I was playing was the one his mother had loved above all others. "I didn't want to interrupt," he said. "I just wanted to hear it." I said only that I was sorry for his loss and meant it, in the plain and honest way. One means it when sympathy is not ritual but real. He nodded. Then he asked about the violin. How long had I been playing? Where had I studied? What had brought me to this building, to this job, to this late-night routine? I told him all of it. Robert and the failed auditions and the teaching studio. And the long years of the cart and the mop. About keeping the violin through all of it, and opening the case again 8 months ago. On a night I could not quite explain. I told him more than I had intended to. And more than I had told anyone in a very long time. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked at the violin in my hands, then at me. "Thank you," he said, "for finishing the piece." A message arrived at 2 o'clock the following afternoon. Daniel Whitmore. He had a small proposal, if I was willing to hear it. His office was large and quiet, glass on 2 sides, the city laid out below. He had coffee already poured and pushed a cup toward me with easy courtesy. He wanted to bring music into the lobby, not a sound system, not a playlist. Something live. Once or twice a week at noon, someone playing in the lobby. where people could stop if they wanted, or simply pass through. And let it catch them the way music catches you when you are not expecting it. He wanted that someone to be me. I'm a janitor, I said. Last night, he said, you played the most beautiful music I've heard in 3 years. I don't see that those two things have anything to do with each other. I called Sarah that evening and told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Mom, take it. Her voice was soft and completely certain. She told me that as a child she had loved the sound of the violin in the house. Had associated it so completely with comfort and safety, that its absence had registered somewhere in her even after all those years. You didn't stop loving it, she said. You just stopped letting yourself have it. I already knew what I was going to do. The first performance was on a Tuesday. I arrived at the lobby 20 minutes early, standing near the center with my case at my feet. Watching the foot traffic move through. People on their phones. People carrying lunch bags. People who walked as though they were already late. And would remain so indefinitely. 12 o'clock. I began to play. For the first few minutes, nothing changed. A woman walked directly past me mid-phrase without slowing. And then a young woman near the elevator stopped. She had her lunch bag in one hand, her phone in the other, and she simply stopped the phone, lowering slightly, her attention shifting. A few steps behind her, a man in his 50s paused and looked around, as though trying to locate something he hadn't expected to hear. By the middle of the piece, 14 people were standing still in various parts of the lobby, not crowding forward, just present, just stopped, the way people stop when something cuts through the noise, and reminds them, for a moment, that they are somewhere. When I finished and lowered the bow, the applause was quiet and genuine. One young man near the cafe entrance had tears on his cheeks. He caught me looking at him and nodded. Once the quick, private nod of someone acknowledging something they have no words for. I understood that nod. I had felt it myself. That was 4 months ago. I still push the cleaning cart through these same halls 5 nights a week. I still empty the wastebaskets and mop the lobby floor, and wipe down the conference tables. I have never thought of that work as less than what it is. But now, on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, I stand in the lobby with my violin, and people stop. Not everyone. Most keep walking, but some stop, and some of those come back the following week. One woman told me she listens and thinks of her father. A man in accounting said the music gets him through the back half of his afternoon, in a way he cannot otherwise explain. A few weeks ago a young woman lingered after everyone else had gone. She waited until the lobby was mostly clear, then came over quietly. I used to play violin, she said. I quit in high school. A pause. I think I want to start again. I looked at her for a moment. You should, I told her. It will be there when you go back to it. Music remembers. If this story has stayed with you, I hope you will carry it a little further. There are people like Margaret everywhere. In every building, every neighborhood. Every quiet life that looks from the outside like it has settled into its final shape. People who carry something beautiful and half-forgotten, not because they stopped loving it, but because they stopped believing there was a place for it. What Margaret reclaimed was not a second chance, exactly. It was a return, a recognition that the thing she had set aside was still hers. That the music had waited. She did not become famous. She did not stop cleaning floors. She simply started playing again, in the light, for people who could hear her. We do not disappear. We go quiet. And quiet, it turns out, is not the same thing at all. Thank you for staying with Margaret's story to the end. If it resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe. And share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.